All right, so here's what is going to be a little strange for me. I spoke here last year on Mother's Day. However, we were outside, so I'm going to need a giant fan that's blowing all my notes, and I'm going to need you guys to all turn on your cell phone lights so that it looks like car lights, because that's what I'm used to speaking to, because that's how it was last year. So it's weird that I can actually walk away from the podium this morning, because that was not possible last year. I was eating hair, and that's why I cut my hair this year, just in case you guys started blowing the wind. It wouldn't blow too far into my face. No, but it has been a year, and it has been a very crazy year. Lots of changes, lots of ups and downs. Not only all the COVID changes that we've had to endure, but we decided it was a great time to sell our house. I don't know what made us think that that was a good idea, and now we've sold it and have no place to go. So that's kind of where we're at right now. It's not fun. I'll just lay that out there. I work for a real estate company, so I have the in kind of when it comes to houses that are coming up for sale, and yet there's still nothing. So we're just kind of playing it day by day. And it's been a very interesting journey to kind of walk on. And for those of you who may know me well, and I know a lot of us go way, way back, and a lot of us are friends on Facebook, so this may come as quite of a shock to you guys, but I am by nature a hardcore planner. I know. For some of you who know me well, that's going to be a shock. Not really. I am a hardcore planner. So this past year of all the changes, the things coming out about what you can do and can't do, what's safe, what's not safe, let's not even talk about virtual learning, and all the changes that we had to go through with that as I worked full time and had to manage that. I'm so grateful for my mom today. Just my thankfulness for her has gone up several notches because she has helped us with virtual learning. But all of those changings this past year was very crazy for me because I'm a planner. And the moment I felt like I had a plan in place, they changed something else and it flew out the window. And it was crazy. And don't even get me started on our Disney trip that we finally got to go on. I know, first world problems, I get it. But we saved for this trip for 3 years. Okay, this was not just like a whim. We saved for this trip for 3 years. We were so excited about it, and it got postponed 3 different times because of COVID. And planning it over and over again was stressful for me. It was very hard on me. I would get so frustrated because you just don't throw together a Disney trip, okay? You don't just wing it. And please, please do not say, just go with the flow. Those words do not even compute in my brain. Don't even try it. I will look at you like you're speaking a foreign language. So in our planning process, Nico kept asking me, he was like, why are you so concerned? He would say stressed over all the different details of this trip. And I was like, look, I don't like sitting around trying to figure out what to do next. I feel like I'm wasting time and it drives me nuts. This is what he has to deal with on a daily basis, so you now know how to pray for him. However, think about this, okay? Think about this. You are in the most magical place on earth for such a short amount of time. I am not about to sit around asking 6 different people what they want for lunch to finally pick a place that winds up being on the other side of the park, so you're now having to walk more steps than an already Disney day requires of you, and it's a lot, just to get over there, and then by that point, everybody's hangry. No, I'm not doing that. If all that information is available ahead of time, why not plan ahead? Why not? Come on. You may call it obsessive. I call it sanity. It's just the way I am. The Lord made me this way. He wired me this way. Look, he obviously had a plan with creation because he was able to rest at the end. So don't come at me, all right? It's just how I am. And I'm hoping, please tell me, that there are some other mamas in here that can relate to this. When I don't have a plan, or when my plan gets blown out the window, I am not okay. I'm not okay. And if there's anything that this past year has taught me, and our current search for a house and all the ups and downs that has brought on, it's this one powerful lesson. Are you ready? It is okay to not be okay. It is. I want you to hear me this, especially moms in here this morning. I know that you want to be strong for your family. I know you want to lead and guide and care and protect and have it all together. You want to be a source of wisdom and direction and instructions. You want to be all things to all the little people in your life. But sometimes, it's my favorite little meme that I see, you just can't. Like, I just can't. I can't. Sometimes you're sad. Sometimes you're mad. Sometimes you're frustrated. Sometimes you're worried or stressed. Sometimes you're not okay. And guess what? It's okay. It's okay. And here's what I learned over this year. It's okay to not be okay, and I don't have to feel guilty about it. I don't have to feel guilty for not being okay. And this is how I know this. At one point or another, all of the famous moms in the Bible were not okay. They all had moments where they were not okay, and it's those moments that shaped them or trained them or enabled them to do and to be what they are most famous for. And so this morning we're going to learn from them, all right? I picked out 4. Don't worry, we're not going to go through like every mom in the Bible, I promise. But I picked out 4. I reached out to, I have a group of, actually now they're all moms, because the youngest one of our little tribe is pregnant with her first child, and we're so excited for her. But we have a little tribe of 4 of us that do a virtual Bible study together. And we started it last year during the lockdown, and it's been so much fun. And so I reached out to them, and I was like, come on, tell me what are some of your favorite moms? So some of this is kind of gleamed from them, and it's been exciting to hear their perspective. Sorry, my mouth is really dry. Thank you. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have a dry mouth, right? But so we're going to learn from 4. And what I want to do is I want to kind of take a step and put their stories in context for us, because some of these we hear a lot about, but I know I didn't until just these past couple of weeks. I never really put myself in their shoes and kind of figured out, okay, where are they coming from? What are they experiencing? What are these ladies up against? So that's what we're going to do, okay? So I'm going to kind of give you a rundown of all 4 of these ladies, and then we're going to dive in and we're going to figure out what we can learn from them when they hit those really hard life moments that we all know, all right? So first of all, we're going to look at Sarah. Okay, Sarah was the wife of Abraham. Abraham was the father of all nations, right? That's the promise that God gave to Abraham over and over and over again. And yet, year after year after year, Sarah did not have one child. Not one child. Can you imagine how that must have made her feel? I mean, think about it. Her husband has been given this incredible vision, and yet not one child had been born. Could you imagine the pain that she had to have felt? The shame she must have carried around? The blame she had to have placed on herself? Sarah was not okay. She was not okay. Jump forward a little bit to Jochebed. That's the name of Moses' mother. Not a lot of people know that. Jochebed. She found herself very pregnant during a time when the Pharaoh of Egypt, that was ruling over the Israelites, made this horrific decree that called for all newborn Hebrew baby boys to be immediately put to death. I can only imagine, I don't even want to imagine, that all of the joy that this mom was experiencing in pregnancy was all of a sudden just sucked out and replaced with this awful fear as she wondered if she was carrying a boy. She didn't know. And upon the birth, Jochebed's fears came to pass. And looking down at that little baby boy, the Bible says that she knew that he was special. She knew that there was something special about him. But thinking about that death sentence hanging over his head, I'd imagine she was not okay. She was not okay. Jump ahead a little further to Hannah. Hannah was married to a very godly man. He loved her so much. However, Hannah had a sister wife who was not the best person. You see, Hannah, like Sarah, couldn't have any children. But her sister wife had many children, and she would throw that in Hannah's face over and over again. And year after year, the family would travel to the tabernacle where they would worship God, and they would make their yearly sacrifice to cover the sins. Thank you, Jesus. We don't have to do that anymore because his sacrifice covers us all. So I'm thankful for that. But they would go year after year, and they would make this sacrifice. And during the process, Hannah's infertility would be once again thrown in her face. And she would be left in tears with no appetite, just devastated because she just wanted one child. Hannah was not okay. Now jump a little further to our fourth mom into the New Testament and a very young girl named Mary. She's an engaged teenager who knew of the amazing promises of her God, but she probably never expected to play such a pivotal role in fulfilling them. Right? So I imagine she's just going about her day, doing her chores as any wonderful child would do, her chores with joy and gladness. And all of a sudden, an angel appears to her, okay? That's shock number one. That's crazy. An angel just appears to her, but then he gives her news that just had to completely floor her. This young, unmarried teenager who had never been with a man was now miraculously carrying a child, but not just any child, the Son of God. Yes. Dun, dun, dun. That's what he said. Come on, the most seasoned wife and mother would have probably gone into a panic, but could you imagine that news to a teenager? A teenager. She had to have been just completely floored. And yes, I will give Mary this. She responded in such faith. She's like, be unto me as you have said. That is awesome. But come on. She had to have been like, what in the world do I do now? She had no clue what to do. She's a teenager. And I'd imagine she was not okay. All four of these women were facing impossibility or uncertainty. All four at one point were probably gripped with fear or anxiety. They all did not have a solution or a clear direction to what they should do, but none of them sat in their fear or their despair or their uncertainty. Each of them took action. And there's so much that we can learn from what they did. And so we're gonna take a little bit step back. I promise you, I will not be up here forever, okay? I'm looking forward to my Mother's Day lunch. So let's go. My Mother's Day doesn't start until after service because I'm like all in the zone in the morning and I'm like, happy Mother's Day. Yeah, great. Okay, let's go. Let's get out the door. Let's go. So my Mother's Day doesn't start until I'm done talking. So I'm ready for my Mother's Day to start. So don't worry. All right? So we're going to take a step back and we're going to learn lessons from each of these ladies. And we're going to start, though, with Jochebed, okay? Mother of Moses. And so you find her story in Exodus chapter 2. And again, it's at the time where Pharaoh has made this horrible decree that says that all the Hebrew boys were to be put to death immediately. And she's pregnant, and she gives birth to a son, and she hides him for 3 months. That's impressive. All right, I like this girl, okay? That is impressive to hide a newborn baby boy for 3 months. But when, in verse 3, it says this, when she could no longer hide him, she got a basket made of papyrus reeds and waterproofed it with tar and pitch. She put the baby in the basket and laid it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile River. And the baby's sister then stood at a distance watching to see what would happen. I love this. All right. Jochebed is in an impossible situation, but she did not give in to her circumstances, okay? She couldn't change the Pharaoh's decree. She couldn't overpower or escape the ruling authorities around her, but she could make a plan. That's my girl. She made a plan. This is how I picture it in my head, okay? Maybe it's just to help my over-planning brain. I don't care. It makes me feel better, so deal with it. I'd imagine from the moment she found out she was pregnant, she was thinking of a plan. Come on. She strategized about what she could do to protect her child if she were to have a boy. It was a 50-50 chance she could have a boy or a girl. They didn't know until the baby was born at that time, but she was going to have a plan. And this is what I love. Okay, come on. This is what I love. This is what makes me feel better about my natural tendency to plan things out. Nowhere in these 4 verses of her story does it say, "So the Lord said to her." Nowhere does it say, "And the Lord spoke, do this." It doesn't say that. She thought of a plan. She put it into action. And guess what? It worked. Her son's life was saved by the enemy. By the enemy. It says starting in verse 5 that Pharaoh's daughter, the Pharaoh, the one who put the death sentence over her son to begin with, his daughter comes down to the river to bathe. She sees the basket. She's curious. She sends her maid over. They open it up. And look at this. Verse 6, it says, when the princess opened it, she saw the baby. The little boy was crying, and she felt sorry for him. "This must be one of the Hebrew children," she said. And then the baby's sister, I like this. I think Miriam took after her mom a little bit because she was quick. She jumps up and she says, "Should I go and find one of the Hebrew women to nurse that baby for you?" She was quick. She was on it. And the princess says, "Yes, please." And so Miriam goes and gets her mom, brings her back. The princess says, "Look, take this baby, nurse him, and I'll pay you." Don't you wish that you were paid as a mom? Come on. Come on. She gets paid to nurse her child. And yes, she has to take that child back after a few years, but that child grows up, has the best education around, and he saves his people from the enemy. Jochebed saw an impossible situation. She thought of a plan. She put it into action, and a miracle happened. We don't know much about her backstory, but what we do know is that her and her husband were from the priestly tribe of Levi. So she knew the history of her people. She knew the God that called them his own. She couldn't change the situation, but she could do what she could do. And she could trust God to do what only he could do, which was to save her son's life. Proverbs 16:3 tells us this: "Commit your actions to the Lord, and your plans will succeed." I think that's my new life verse. Commit your actions to the Lord, and your plans will succeed. Sometimes when we're facing situations that are beyond our control, and it seems like we can't do anything about it, we have to take a step back and just do something. My uncle always said, just do something even if it's wrong. I'm not saying do that. And of course, yes is my dad's brother who says that. Shocker, right? Just do something even if it's wrong. I'm not saying do something that's wrong. I'm just saying do something. Do something. Jochebed knew that making a basket and putting it in the reeds by the river was not a permanent solution. Yes, the sound of the river would hide the baby's cries and he'd be safe there for a little bit, but he couldn't survive for long. But she also knew she had to do something. I don't know the situation that you're facing right now. I don't know the battle that you're up against, but I want you to know that it is okay to not be okay. It's okay if you find yourself in a situation where you're like, this is not okay, I'm not okay. But you can't let it cause you to freeze up or backtrack or surrender and fall down. You have to find something that you can do, even if it's small, even if it's temporary. Again, my new life motto: control what you can, commit it to the Lord, and allow him to do the rest. It's okay to not be okay, but you still need to do something. Just do something. Now, you may say, look, my situation is completely out of my hands. It's a miracle or it's nothing, so then what do I do? Well, glad you asked. Let's look at Hannah. Hannah, her story is found in 1 Samuel chapter 1. And again, year after year, they would go to the tabernacle as a family. and they would worship and do their sacrificial meal. And one time it says in verse 9, after this sacrificial meal, Hannah got up. Remember, she was upset. She would lose her appetite. She didn't want to eat. So what does she do? She gets up and she goes to pray. Come on. That's a good lesson right there. You don't know what to do. You're upset. Get up. Go pray. So this is what she does. She goes and she prays. And Eli the priest was sitting at his customary place beside the entrance of the tabernacle. Hannah was in deep anguish, crying bitterly as she prayed to the Lord. Verse 12 says, as she was praying, Eli watched her. Seeing her lips moving but hearing no sound, he thought she had been drinking. Must you come in here drunk? He demanded. Throw away your wine. That's a harsh accusation. But that was an intense prayer. Look, infertility is a painful journey. Back in Hannah's day, the very worth of a woman was defined by the children, specifically the sons that she had. And yes, a woman's worth is not defined the same way today, but nonetheless, it is a painful journey to walk. And I think what I come away most from Hannah's journey is that she never gave up hope. She's not okay, but she knew the character of God. She knew who he was. If she didn't, she wouldn't have come to him. She wouldn't have kept coming to him. She knew that he had great love and compassion, and she knew that she could come to him with that full, ugly cry, abandoned, and he would hear her and he would be there for her. She did not see the purpose in her pain or in her waiting, but she trusted him to work it all out for his purpose, and he does. She pours her heart out to God over and over again. This was years and years of coming to the tabernacle. And she didn't waver. She didn't give up. She kept coming to him. One of my least favorite verses, Psalm 27:14. Wait patiently for the Lord. I'm not good at that. I'm a planner. I'm an action taker. I don't like to wait patiently. But then it says be brave and courageous, because that's what it takes to wait patiently for the Lord, is to be brave and not give up hope, to be courageous and to keep holding on. And that's what Hannah did. And this was the year that Hannah's prayers were answered. She says to Eli, no, I have not been drinking wine or anything stronger, but I am very discouraged. And I was pouring my heart out to the Lord. Please don't think I'm a wicked woman, for I have been praying out of great anguish and sorrow. She was not okay. But in verse 17, it says, in that case, Eli said, go in peace. May the God of Israel grant the request you have asked of him. She got up. She went and ate. She was not sad anymore. She didn't physically see the miracle at that moment, but she knew it was coming. Hannah's story has been preserved in the Bible to show us what unwavering trust and faith looks like. She gives me hope that in the middle of my emotional or physical or spiritual pain, I can remember her story and I can hold on to faith and trust and hope, because she remained hopeful in her prayer that God was going to answer. She had a trusting expectancy for God's timing. It's okay to not be okay, but we can't give up hope. Pour your heart out to God time and time again, and whatever it is that you're waiting for or you're believing for or you're trusting for, he will come through in his perfect timing. And look, when you find yourself starting to doubt, when you find yourself where you're like, I just can't. I can't say the same prayer over and over again. I can't fall down on my face over and over again. I just can't. Find yourself somebody who can hold you up. Find yourself somebody who can lift you up, because that's what Mary did. That's what Mary did. Again, she was a young teenage girl. This had to have been so mind-blowing for her that not only was she miraculously pregnant, but she was pregnant with the Son of the Most High. That's crazy. And her response to the angel is awesome. Yes, she says, Luke 1:38, she says, I am the Lord's servant. May everything you have said about me come true. And then the angel left her. Wow, what a statement of faith. Like, what a statement of confidence. She's willing to do whatever it took to fulfill this special role that God has now called her into. But did you catch that last little part of the verse? And then the angel left. He comes, he drops this bomb on her, and he leaves. What? There's no manual, there's no handbook, there's no, again, like with Jochebed, there's no, thus saith the Lord, here's what you need to do. No, he just leaves. There's a pastor that got saved in my dad's youth group when I was really, really little, and then he grew up to be a pastor, and he would come and speak at our youth retreats when I was like middle school and high school, and he was so funny, and he would say the favorite thing, or his favorite part of guest speaking was that he could blow in, blow up, and blow out. That was his favorite part. He could come in, blow up, and blow out. He didn't have to worry about stepping on toes. He didn't have to worry about offending people because he was out of there, and he didn't have to clean up the mess. I feel like kind of that's what the angel did here. He just comes in, he drops this truth bomb on Mary, and she's like lost. Like, okay, I'll do that. What do I do? What's next, right? Like, she had to have been so confused. Like, wouldn't you have been? I mean, what was she supposed to do? Who could she talk to? Would people believe her? Would her mom believe her? Would her rabbi believe her? Like, what's going to go? How's this going to go? And then she remembered something else that the angel did say to her. In verse 36, it says, what's more, like, check this out, your relative Elizabeth has become pregnant in her old age. I would have been offended by that, but that's okay. People used to say that she was barren, but now she has conceived a son and is in her 6th month, for the word of God will never fail. The only person that she knows who will be able to understand her situation is her relative Elizabeth. So what does she do with her faith-filled yet not okayness? It says in verse 39, a few days later, Mary hurried to the hill country of Judea, to the town where Zechariah lived, and she entered the house and greeted Elizabeth. The Greek word used here for the word hurried, it can mean haste or speed, but it also means eagerness or enthusiasm. Remember, she's a young teenager. She's pretty overwhelmed, so she knows that she needs help. She needs somebody who's going to understand, so she eagerly goes to the one person who's experienced a similar miracle and can understand where she's at, and because Elizabeth was older, can help direct her and what to do next. And here's why. Elizabeth, we learn in verses 5 and 6, her and her husband not only have a priestly lineage, but it says they were righteous in God's eyes, careful to obey all of the Lord's commandments and regulations. I just love that Elizabeth's son paves the way for Mary's son, but that started back even further. Elizabeth paved the way for Mary to be able to handle and to walk out this miracle that God had given to her. God provided Elizabeth to Mary as someone who would nurture her and encourage her, to instruct her, to teach her, to be a friend and an advocate. It was a special period of time for a special reason, and God brought them together. It's okay to not be okay, to feel lost, even when it's something good that's happening, something that you know that God is in and He is leading. It's okay to still look at it and go, I have no idea what to do, but go seek godly counsel. Go find somebody that can help you. Proverbs 19:20 says, listen to advice and accept discipline, and at the end, you will be counted among the wise. Go find somebody that can help lift you up so that you can have strength to do something, so that you can hold on to your faith and your trust that God is doing something amazing. But what happens when we get it wrong? You may say, look, Mal, this all sounds great, but what if I take action and I'm wrong? What if I can't keep my grip on hope and doubt starts to creep in? What happens if I don't lean on somebody else and I fall? What then? We'll go back to the beginning. We kind of jumped ahead of Sarah. I don't know if you remember that or not. It's okay if you didn't. But I started with Sarah, and we're going to jump back to her. We don't have time to read her whole story, but again, when I was reaching out to my Bible study group, one of them recommended Sarah, and at first I was like, I don't know. But she summarized Sarah's story in such a wonderful way. And so I just kind of want to read you her bullet points so that you understand what Sarah did. Okay, Sarah couldn't have children, but she knew that God had promised a long lineage to Abraham, and it wasn't happening. So Sarah tries to solve the problem on her own, and it caused an even bigger problem. Shocker. Right? She actually laughed when she overheard God telling Abraham, no, look, I know you have a son now through Sarah's maid, but no, I'm still going to fulfill my promise through Sarah. Sarah heard that and laughed. It's like scoffed at it. And then, check this out, she lied when God called her out on it. He's like, why did you just laugh? She's like, I didn't laugh. What? She scoffs and then she lies. And then she becomes jealous of her maid Hagar and Hagar's son Ishmael, the little problem that she caused. She gets jealous of them and she convinces Abraham to banish them to the wilderness. Such an inspirational story. Sarah's somebody we should all model. No. But look, I think her story speaks to us because of her imperfections. She didn't believe God's promise. She laughed at it. She was like, that's impossible. She lied. But all these faults make her feel less like a Bible character and more like a human. We can relate to her mistakes. And yet God still used her in spite of her mistakes. Her humanity did not stop God's plan. He still made her the mother of Isaac. He still used Isaac to fulfill the promise that God had given to her husband. He still worked it all out, even though time and time again she messed it up. And I think there's so much pressure as a mom to know the right thing to do or to be perfect. But this story encourages me because in spite of my imperfections, God can still work it out. Proverbs 19:21 says, many are the plans in a person's heart, but the Lord's purpose will prevail. We can plan it out, we can do something, and we can get it wrong. But if we're committing it to the Lord, He's still going to work it out. It's okay to not be okay. And as we close out this morning, the band can come on up. I want you to understand, bottom line, why. Why is it okay to not be okay? Because it reminds us of our limited ability, and it points us to God's limitless power. It forces us to rely on Him and to trust Him to do what only He could do. And when we screw it up, because we will, we can have confidence that He can and He will still work it all out. One of the current study that my friends and I are doing is the story of Elijah. It's incredible. Priscilla Schreier's book, Elijah. If you have an opportunity to do a small group or even do it by yourself, I encourage you to do that book. It is incredible. But her opening question, and that's kind of what started spurring my thought process to why I chose to speak on specific moms this morning, is because her question is, are we willing to do what Elijah did in order to get what Elijah got? And so that's my question to you guys this morning, is are we willing to do what these famous moms did in order to get what they got? Because it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have fear, but are we willing to just do something, even if it's small, and commit it to God and then trust Him to perform the big miracle? It's okay to be okay and to feel the deep anguish and hurt, because You've been praying and you've been praying for something to happen and it just hasn't been happening. And it's okay to feel that anguish like Hannah felt, but are you still willing to try to keep a grip, even if it's small, on hope and the God that always comes through like Hannah did in order to be blessed the way that Hannah was? It's okay to not be okay when something is happening, even if it's wonderful, but you have no idea what to do next. It's okay to not be okay in a time of uncertainty. But are we willing to seek out counsel the way that Mary did, to get guided and honored the way that Mary did? It's okay to not be okay. But we can't stay in it. And I tell you what, I needed this more than probably many of you, because I haven't been okay lately. And it's okay. It's okay. Because we serve a big God, and there's nothing that he can't do. And if we allow these times where we just feel like we're drowning, or we're unsure, or we don't know what to do, if we allow those times to draw us closer to him, it's going to turn out to be the best thing that's ever happened to you. So this morning as we stand, I don't know what you're going through. Moms in here today, I don't know what you've been through this past year. I know for me, virtual learning was really crazy. And like I said, I'm a planner and I work full time. So trying to figure out all the schedules and make sure the girls are being taken care of, and then also getting my work done and all the changes that they went through. It was a little crazy and it was intense and overwhelming. And maybe that was the case for you guys. I don't know your school situation down here, but it was crazy. Maybe it's a family situation. Maybe it's something that you've been praying for and pleading over. Maybe it has to do with your children or your husband. I don't know. But I want you to know this morning that you have permission. You have permission to not be okay. It's okay. But please, don't stay in it. Don't hold on to it. Don't use it as a crutch. Don't use it as an excuse. Use it for something that is going to propel you into something greater than you could ever imagine. Mary would have never thought that she would be infamously known as the mother of Jesus. Hannah would have never imagined that she would have given birth to a son that was going to serve God in such a great capacity. Jochebed would have never known, just by taking one little action, that it would save her son's life, who would then save all of Israel. She never could have imagined that. But they did something. They held on to hope. They sought out counsel, and they didn't stay in their not okayness. This morning, don't stay in it. You may not be able to change it. You may walk out of here and it's still there. But just know that God's got it. He's taking care of it. And there's something that you can do. Even if it's small. In our move situation, I can't make a house pop on the market. I can't even find a rental right now, okay? We have to be out of our house by the end of the month. It's a struggle. But you know what I can do? I can pack my house. I can get my house into a storage unit. I can start moving things. Who in here likes to move? No. Oh. I bless you, sir, because that is not something that I like doing, okay? I don't like cleaning out all my junk. I don't like seeing how much junk I have. So I'm going to start this process as early as possible, because that's something I can control. I'm not going to let that piece of it weigh on me and stress me out when everything else is already stressful that I can't control. So I'm going to control that. Maybe this morning you can't control your crazy kid. You raised them, just saying. But maybe you can't control it. Maybe they're at the point now where you just have to take your hands off, but you better believe your knees can be down on the ground and you can be praying over that child. That's something you can do. Find something that you can do. Commit it to the Lord. Don't give up hope. And when you feel like you're drowning, find somebody with godly counsel. That is so important. That can hold you up. Because it's okay to not be okay. It's not okay to stay there. Let's pray. God, this morning, again, I don't know all the situations that everybody's been going through, and maybe this message was just for me, and that's okay. I'm fine with that because I know I've needed to hear it. I know that every single one of these points hits so true for our situation right now, and I need to hold on to every single one of them. But I have to believe that there's somebody else in here today that is also going through something, and they're not okay. And God, I just want you to speak the truth into them this morning that that's okay. Life is hard. Situations are going to be hard, and they're going to be out of our control, and it's going to feel like it's more than I can bear or I can stand or I can do something about. But you know what? It's not bigger than you. And it is something that you can do something about, and you have a plan and a purpose in it, and we have to trust you. So I pray this morning that you would just speak that into our hearts, that you would speak that into each and every person, but especially our mamas in here that want to be so strong for their kids and for their families. Let them know it's okay. It's okay if you're sad. It's okay if you're hurt. It's okay if you're stressed or overwhelmed. But God, I pray that this morning that they would be able to stand up, find something that they can do that will help them feel like they're moving through this season. Help them to hold on with such hope that you are going to work it out, and help them to find somebody around them that can uplift them and speak truth into them that's maybe walked the same path or is in the same situation, and they can do it together, because that's what you created us to do, is to be in community. God, I just pray your anointing over their lives. I pray a special blessing on our moms today, on maybe some ladies in here today that long to be a mom, and they can relate to Sarah and to Hannah, and their heart's desire is to have a child. God, I pray that they would have encouragement this morning to not give up hope, that you hear their cry and you feel their pain and you want to wrap your arms around them. I pray this morning that you would just release the burden of guilt off of moms for not having it all together, for not being perfect, because none of us are, and that you would replace it with peace and confidence and assurance that in our weakness, you are strong. Where we lack, you are all sufficient. Where we struggle, you are strong. God, you are all things to all people, and I pray you would be that this morning in our hearts. And as we sing this last song, God, I just pray that we would soak in your presence. Let your breath fill our lungs and our hearts, and then as a way of worship and saying thanks, we would release that breath back to you. What you give to us, we release it back in praise to you, because that's how we're going to do it. That's how we're going to make it. That's the relationship that you designed for us to have with you, God. So just speak to hearts this morning, and I pray that you would bless